have put being a dad, being his father, number one. And if it wasn't for that, it might have been a little bit tougher to jump over this hurdle and look ahead.
There's no doubt. There's been, I've realized so much in this process. You realize what's important. You realize you thought you couldn't get touched. You thought because of, we're the top program in the country, if not the top 1 or 2 programs in the country over the last 10 years. You think you can't get touched. You think you can just go around, and plan your future. And then you get shocked like this. And then the first thing I thought about is, there's so many other people going through a lot tougher stuff than I am right now. What am I sad about? Pick yourself up. Your kid needs you. He doesn't know the difference, Let's roll. He's got to see you be strong. And that's what I've tried to do, although it's been hard some days. But talking about it sometimes, when people understand, when people know the truth, they see it for what it is, wow, that feels great.
It's as clear as black and white. You were a scapegoat. And I think when the San Diego Padres, a professional baseball team, picked you up, that in itself says he has a world of knowledge that our players, both in the lower levels and at the Major League Baseball level, can learn from.
Right. It was a great gesture. I owe a lot to them because it keeps my mind active, gives me a sense of place, and it's opened my mind up. I've learned so much from them. I'm just thankful. I don't know that I can add anything, but I certainly have learned a lot, and I think met some wonderful people. It's a great organization, great people. It's changing, and I was just thankful. A couple different organizations reached out. It felt so good, So that's the part behind the scenes that keeps me going. And like you said, the more people know the truth, it feels a little better. I don't think I'll ever win that. I don't think anybody's ever going to really 100% know the truth. But the bottom line, some of it's coming out, and that feels better. And I'm really proud of what we achieved. Nobody can take that away from us. And I'm proud that the team is still doing well. And they will do well for a while because we've got great recruiting classes in place. And that program was real. It wasn't fly by night. It wasn't 1 year. We never had a bad year. And the last 5 are unmatched by anybody else in the country. One of the greatest eras in ASU history. And although there's a lot more sports in the Valley and not as much focus on ASU baseball, truly one of the greatest eras, and it's going to continue because they've got great young men that it doesn't matter what happens to them, what adversity comes. It matters that, hey, I got a job to do, and I know the responsibility of being part of this program. And that's what feels good, is that I was part of building something so special.
Can you explain to me in black and white what lack of institutional control means? I've heard this so many times over the last 5 years.
I think the best way to describe it is the NCAA requires schools to adhere to all these rules and regulations. If you were to look at the NCAA manual, it's a very thick book with an unbelievable amount of rules that equate to making sure there's fairness in the competition. And there's a compliance area that you have to kind of document all of your stuff to make sure that you're compliant. And when one of your programs maybe doesn't have it up to snuff, or there's a bunch of different areas that need improvement, the NCAA will have that allegation against you called lack of institutional control. It sounds a lot more serious sometimes. I mean, it's very serious, but I think it sounds a lot more serious sometimes, like everybody's running roughshod and nobody knows what's going on. But they're very strict about universities keeping tabs on this kind of stuff. And ASU had one in '05, and they're facing one here. And I hope that doesn't happen, because you don't wish that on anybody. But that's not for me to decide or anything else, but it's something that it's like Mike Krzyzewski from Duke. He talked about it, that you can't possibly follow every single rule. You know in your heart, and you know what's right and what's wrong, but the rules are so complicated sometimes that it becomes very, very difficult to know them all, or to be told them all, or how they're interpreted.
With that said, how serious did you take that NCAA rulebook?
Oh, you take it very serious. But after 27 years, it changes back and forth, but there's no doubt you take it very serious. I know more now about the NCAA rules than anyone could ever. I could be an athletic director knowing what I know from a compliance standpoint.
Is it something you sit down and look at the book throughout the season? Is it something, as you say, it changes, you look at it in the off season? I mean, after all, you've taken these kids to great heights, right, academically as well as on the baseball field. Surely you just don't throw one off to the side and go, well, it doesn't really matter.
No, exactly. You keep up with it, and it's something that you re-educate. But to say that you know every little rule in, out, up, down, you couldn't find a coach out there that knows every single rule. But you know the spirit of the rule. You know when something's in place, and you know what cheating is, and you know what inducements are, and you know what an unfair advantage is. So the rest is up for interpretation, but the rules is something we take very, very serious.
When you look back at the 15 years at ASU with a record that is unheard of, are there some moments that just really stick out and you go, wow, how blessed I was to be part of that?
No question. I think back to 05. My most memorable moment was 05, and we had just clinched a trip to the World Series. And instead of celebrating after the game, I jumped in the car with my kids, and we drove back to Tempe from LA, and I was still in my uniform. And we laughed and we talked the whole way. My son was 5 years old. He was so excited. My daughter was with me. She was so excited. And we just spent that time as a family driving that 7 hours right then after the game. And boy, it was an exciting game. Nobody gave us much chance. Fullerton was top team like always, and we were matched with them again. And they had always been a nemesis for us at getting to the World Series. And the first game ended, the 3-game series, ended with a very controversial balk on an intentional walk on national television. So our guy was intentionally walking them to load the bases in the bottom of like the 11th, and the umpire called a balk. And I normally would have lost it, but Kai was in the stands and he wasn't feeling well, and I was like, wow, I can't lose it here, because I won't be able to explain it to him, so I'm going to stay cool. So that was my first lesson in staying cool, but that was a great moment for me.
Today in Major League Baseball, you got to just sit back in your recliner and just smile like you're doing now,
Yeah,
because
no
these are former ASU players that seem to be in the spotlight in Major League Baseball news.
See Mike Leake go from college to the major leagues and do so well. Hear his manager, Dusty Baker, talk about him the way he does. Pedroia, what can you say, man? And I mean, that's
look at what his accomplishment was.
Yeah, and then just look at how he does it every day, day in and day out. And he's captured Major League Baseball fans. Andre Ethier now is not letting his good friend Pedroia show him up, and Andre has dominated, and he's winning the Triple Crown right here in the National League. Ike Davis just got brought up 1 year of the minor leagues. He's doing it in New York and getting great reviews. We've had a bunch of guys, and yeah, that keeps me going. Yeah, it's really special. Special for ASU, and special for our program and the people that were part of our program for so long.
All right, you say that at 50 years old you finally grew up. When the dust settles, what do you want to do in the next stage of your life?
I'm not exactly sure, but I want to continue to be a great father. I want to continue to grow as an individual, make better choices about the people I surround myself with, make a difference, you know, and not just, it's not about racking up wins. You know, everybody talks about, you know, if you coach 20 more years, you'll be the all-time winningest coach ever, and it's not all about that. It's about making an impact, being significant in whatever field it is. It'll probably be baseball,